Hey everyone, how's it going? I'm Nick Baldwin. We are back with Command Your Business. Say hello to my co-host, Robert Chubb. I'm being very formal today, Robert.
Very formal with the Robert. I don't know that you've ever called me that before.
I haven't called you Robert. It's because I have a bone to pick with you, Robert, so I'm using your full name.
All right, what is it?
I'm just kidding. I don't have. You know when your parents...
Am I in trouble?
Yeah, you know my dad only calls me Nicholas when, there's something that I did wrong.
Yeah, Robert gets.
So how's it going?
I'm doing well. How are you, Nick?
Good to have you back for another episode of Command Your Business. We have a pretty awesome guest today. She has been in the business not for very long, for about 6 years. She's doing some pretty amazing things, and she has a pretty amazing story that I feel is inspirational.
This is one of the most inspirational stories I think I've heard in a long time. So I'm excited for this.
It's one of those stories that when you hear it, you're like, so what's your excuse?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It's like I got out of bed and like my hip was a little sore because I slept funny. Right. And what you guys are about to hear is something totally crazy. And you'll never worry about your sore hip again.
No. Our guest is Randi Brandt. She is an agent out of Keller Williams Lakeside in Michigan. So we're all in the same state, yet we're all on Zoom. How does that work out? Randi, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, gentlemen.
It is a pleasure. It was awesome seeing you on stage at Mega Camp a few months ago. That was pretty great. And when I saw you up there and it said that you were in Michigan, I was like, how is Randi in Michigan and I'm in Michigan and I don't know Randi? I don't know how that happened. I don't know. So I had to fix that. And now you're on the podcast.
Absolutely.
So we have
our Mitten state is quite big. So
it is.
Yeah, but like we're in the same general vicinity though.
We are.
You know what I mean?
True. I just was keeping under the radar.
Yeah, I know you are flying. You're one of those people that just get stuff done with your head down and you're killing it. So you've been in the business for 6 years. And the cool thing is your business is doubling year over year and you're a solo agent. And Rob, before you hopped on and before we went live, Randi told me as a solo agent, she's got 11 active listings and a 12th hitting the market any day. A solo agent.
Wow. That is amazing. That's really good. Randi, let me ask, so you're about to double your business. What did you do last year? Volume wise.
So last year I finished at 5.6 mil.
And so you're on track for like 12 million this year?
I'll hit 12 million. My reach now for Q4 is to see if I can get to 15.
Love that. Thinking big.
So tell us give us a little insight into, how you ended up doubling and then some from last year to this year. What did you do differently? Did you do anything differently?
There's a few things I've done. I've actually poured more into my business in that I finally got a coach, which I know, don't yell at me. So I got a coach. I engaged myself more within the trainings and offerings, not only within our brokerage, also within our associations and the state. Michigan Realtors has a ton. So it's really kind of been this trifecta of just fully engaging myself in that everything I do in some facet revolves around my business and pouring into my clients and giving them the best service.
I love that because one of the things Gary talks about a lot, Gary Keller, is that learning-based people just make more money in general. So when you apply that to your business like this, I mean, and you're living proof of that. You're doubled, and now you've locked into 15 million for Q4 or through Q4. And I love that the one thing you said was, I just poured into the business, like attending the trainings and then executing it into your business. It's so simple. Yet it's like the first thing agents will do is disconnect and not do that. So great job.
Always. Thank you. Yeah, there's always that limiting belief that they have of, I don't have the money to do it. I don't have the opportunity. Somebody told me, Daniel Dixon, actually, he's from Colorado area.
Yeah, I know Daniel. He's a superstar for sure.
He's a good friend and mentor of mine, and he was at one of the classes I went to, and he said, "You'll always find the money. Just make it happen." And it's true in that. That was how I started building up my portfolio for my own personal investments too. Is I didn't have the money. I went to one of my clients and said, "I want to partner with you. Here's how much money I can have. This is how much of the percentage I want in." And we just kept doing that until I was able to actually purchase my own small multifamily by myself.
Love that.
Good for you.
When did you do that?
Last year was my
Last year.
first
Great.
purchase.
How many doors is that, as they say in the business?
So I have a duplex in Detroit.
Okay. Do you like how I use that phrase? How many
You
doors
really
do you
pulled
have?
that. Yeah. You have the investment for dummies next to you.
I've been paying attention.
That was
I
I
like
like
to
to sound
slick
like
there.
I like to sound like I know what I'm talking about. How many
You
doors?
definitely
is that?
do.
Two? Yeah, gotcha.
Mhm.
So you said that you mentioned to us or off the air that 95% of your business is sphere of influence and referral. So like, are you doing anything? I mean, you must be doing something more than you were doing last year in terms of keeping in touch. Are you doing anything? Is there a systematic approach to keeping in touch with your sphere?
Yeah, so we've always been taught about like the 36 touch and keeping in front of your clientele and your database, being top of mind. So I've taken that to a whole nother level in that I am a very marketing based realtor. I've learned that it's something I enjoy. So I use my social media exponentially. It is 100% because when I was chatting with my coach when I first got him, he said, "I look at your social media and there's nothing real estate related. It's you as a person. There's no Randi Brandt realtor. What are you doing?" And so I adjusted that. And then also really using the systems that Command has already into my daily task, my calendar. My Command is the first thing that I open even before my email every day. So I know exactly what's going on. And it's really simple to set things up to where it tells you what to do. It tells you who you need to contact. And then like prime example, I was keeping in touch with a client. I wasn't able to help them buy their first home during the craziness earlier this year. And they were expecting their first baby. Well, didn't want to bug them, just wanted to keep top of mind. They were a referral from a lending partner. And so I reached out and said, "It's pumpkin spice latte season. Are you excited?" in the little group chat. And I got a photo back of surprise, baby came early. And so first thing I did was I made a little gift basket with a bottle of wine because new parents always need wine, my logoed wine goblets, a personalized blanket for the baby. And then there's actually, if you go out there, Baby's First Home, it's a little book. And I delivered that last weekend. And the first thing, they weren't home, so I dropped it off. I sent them a text, said, "Just so you know, there's something at your door." And the first response was, "Oh my God, we love it. Thank you so much. I can't wait to take the baby out on house hunting." So right then and there, I know they're still my client. Because I can pour into them. I actually care about them as a person.
And by the way, who isn't excited about pumpkin spice season?
Right.
Just thought I would throw that out
plug
there.
in there.
Yeah.
Randy, so I love systems, and I love that when especially as business owners, we take that system and can implement that. Before you started using Command for automating some of your process, did you have a different technology you were using or a different system?
So full disclosure, in the beginning, I was using an Excel spreadsheet.
Great.
That worked out well, clearly. I did purchase a CRM system that I had been shown at a conference of some sort. I think it was with a women's council conference. Mm-hmm. And, I thought it was expensive. I felt that, I can go into it. It's an IDX. It has all these things. After 6 months and going through my profit and loss, the money I was putting into that was not giving me anything out of it. And so dumped that, got rid of my website with that company and went fully into Command. That was about 2 years ago now.
Awesome.
So yeah.
And then
So-
let me, one more thing here. I want to go back to
okay.
the coaching. So how much
Mhm.
does your coach help you with like accountability?
So one thing about me is I am an athlete. I am very competitive. I played volleyball in college. I still play volleyball to this day. And so he knows how to use that competitive aspect. Like, I will not fail. I will not lose. So without even telling me he's holding me accountable, he's basically holding me accountable, but I'm really just doing it myself in my own head.
Love that.
Mhm.
So you were talking about Command. It's Keller Williams proprietary technology for those listening and aren't aware of what that is. Just one question about Command. What do you find yourself using the most inside of Command?
There's probably two. My tasks, because I am very calendar based. If it's not on my calendar, it doesn't exist in my world. So the task list that I create within each individual client and or property, and then also the marketing aspects of it. So you'd mentioned, I've got 11 listings currently between my residential and my commercial deals. As much as I would love to say I have the ability to just make all of these beautiful flyers and get these postcards out and everything, I don't. That is the beauty within our technology, is that I can literally go in, hit 3 buttons, and 250 people closest to my just listed are getting a postcard that says, hey, we're listing this property soon. Come check it out and join us at our open house. Also, who do you know that wants to work or live in your neighborhood? So that is really one of the biggest things that has really helped as far as getting that exposure out there, getting those marketing dollars to work, and it's really cost effective.
Love that. I love that. So let's get into this story, Randi Brandt. I called her Brandy Rant. Wouldn't that be weird? Just reversed. Randi.
Yeah.
Let's get into this story. So about 4 years ago, was it 4 years ago in 2018?
Mm-hmm.
You had a major health scare, which is an understatement. You had liver and kidney failure. Is that accurate?
Correct. Yeah.
And you were rushed to the hospital. And then while you were in the hospital, at the age of, how old were you? 32 at this point?
It was a week after my 32nd birthday, I was taken by ambulance. Mm-hmm.
So you were having liver and kidney failure. And how did you know that was happening? Like, what did you feel like at that moment?
Sure. So I had turned 32 on a Thursday, typical day, went to the office, worked, went to the gym, went home, nothing super exciting. I'm in my 30s now. It's just another birthday. That following Saturday, I started just feeling a little off. My body was sore. I kind of had aches. I was really tired. By Tuesday, I ended up going to my primary doctor and said, something is just not right. I just don't feel good. I love my primary care physician dearly. He looked at me, he's like, oh, it's probably just a urinary tract infection or something. We're diving deep, guys. I knew it was not one of those. So he did do some blood work, and he said, just take it easy. I'll call you if there's anything wrong. Okay. So Wednesday, the next morning, I go to the office. I'm 14 months in the business, so I'm still hustling and grinding and trying to learn this craziness that is our industry.
But you go to the office and you don't feel well.
Correct.
Right? Like you feel like it's not like you don't feel well because you got like a runny nose. Like you feel like, your liver and kidney are in failure at this moment, correct?
Correct.
Okay, keep going.
Yep. So, brand new in the business, I did what I was told, and 8:30 to 11, that was my opportunity finding. I don't call it prospecting, it's opportunity finding. By the time lunch came around, that 12 o'clock time, I had to go home. I was exhausted and I fell asleep on my couch. I was living in an apartment at the time, and I get 2 phone calls from my primary. He says, you have to call me immediately. There's something wrong. I finally wake up, I call him. He says, you need to come in first thing. We think the labs tainted your blood work. We need to rerun it. Okay, no problem. So this is now Thursday, that morning. It's a week after I turned 32. It took me about 2 hours to get ready just because I was so exhausted. Probably shouldn't have, but I drove to my doctor's office. And as I was walking from the waiting room into the exam room, I actually ended up passing out. And so they called 911. And what they had said when the ambulance was arriving, and I was trying to figure out what in the world was going on. And I will say the one thing I asked my doctor wasn't call my dad. It wasn't what's happening. It was, can you go out to my car and get my work bag? Because I need my laptop.
That's a real
I wish-
estate agent.
There we go.
I wish I was kidding. So what
But
they had found
in this moment though, Randy, you've passed out now and they're like, we got to get you to the hospital. What is going through your head as far as like what's wrong?
So honestly, I figured they were just being very cautious, which is, better to be cautious than not.
Sure.
And so I figured, I'll go to the ER, they'll check me out. I'll probably have, some sort of virus going on. They'll send me home with some antibiotics or something, no big deal. So I wanted my laptop because if anybody knows, it's not always quick in the emergency room, depending on your situation. So I figured I'd have some time to work. Well, joke was on me. So they saw the blood panel. My primary was saying, this is what we're seeing. We're sending you. So they took me. I went into triage, and the doctor on call in the ER that day, she's a younger lady. They ran another blood panel like instantly. And I was on the gurney, just kind of in the hallway, just because there was a lot of hustle and bustle. It was busy that day. Within moments, they were removing the patient that was in like the big scary, like we need all eyes on you room. They wheeled him out, they put me in, and then there was like 64 people on top of me, just IVs, all sorts of craziness.
Wow.
Because I was in liver and kidney failure. They were shutting down. My organs were done.
Man. And so then not so long after that, like what, a week or two, maybe, while you're in the hospital, you had a stroke on top of that.
I did. So back up a little bit. So the first 3 days, I don't remember a ton. From what my dad told me, because my dad, he ended up he got called right then and there. He came down, and my family, I'm from Pinckney, and I was in Troy, Beaumont. So that's a good like 95-mile round trip. It's not just down the street. He drove right down from work and stayed with me all night. The first 3 days, the nephrologist, which is your kidney function, Mr. Brandt, we're not sure she's going to survive. I don't really remember a ton of that. They were doing everything in their power they could. About day 4, I did 1 round of dialysis, and my body started picking back up. So we were good. Once I started kind of getting a little more stable, they started to do testing to try and figure out what had caused my organs to shut down. A normally healthy person that goes to the gym 5 days a week, eats well. Why is this happening? So one of the procedures they did was a spinal tap, which is pretty standard, not a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
So I was talking to my main nurse, my head nurse, and she was telling me a little bit about what was going to happen. And she said, the procedure takes about 35 minutes. Okay, no big deal. From the time I was wheeled into the procedure room to the time I was taken out was 7 minutes. The next morning, because at this point, when one organ is done and the others are starting to fail, they put everybody on you. So I had 11 specialties at one point coming in every day checking on me. The next morning after my spinal tap, the neurologist came in. She was a fellow. And those boards that you have at the end of your hospital beds, like your name and your nursing staff and like goals or whatever. Mm-hmm. So I was chatting with her, and she's like, follow your finger, blah, blah, blah. And I said, I'm not able to read my board today. It's kind of weird. She goes, oh, well, let's get another MRI and just take a look, make sure. Went down. no sooner did they wheel me up from the MRI, I had my head nurse, my primary care, and the neurologist. And they said, you have a subdural hematoma. You're going to ICU. So basically, I had a brain bleed. The radiologist had taken so much spinal fluid so quickly, it actually caused my brain to shift and hit the front of my cranium.
Wow.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I spent some days in the ICU, which was really nice because it was a private room. Great.
Look at the positives, right?
You have to. That was the day that happened was my dad's off day, if you will. So he would come every other day to be with me to follow up. And they ended up calling him and said, we're taking her to the ICU. This has happened. That was almost 3 weeks into my very long vacation of 60 days. That was also the first time my mother joined my father and came to the hospital. She had not found it. Yeah.
Yeah. Your mom
Mm-hmm.
did not come visit you.
She did not. She chose not to. My parents were together at that point. We had been, a pretty happy, stable family. And she said she didn't feel wanted and she didn't find it necessary to be there. My mom's worked in the medical field her entire adult life. It's all she's ever done. So to have the person that I rely on to at least understand this lingo and things choose not to come was very hard. So she did come that day. My dad forced her to get in the car. And I remember they walked into my room. My dad grabbed a chair, put it right next to my bedside, and just watched the monitor that was above my right shoulder. Linda came in. She went right to, there was like a bed by the window for guests. She walked right in, didn't say a word, curled up, went to sleep. My dad had been watching my monitor, and I found out that the staff had told him that if one of the numbers spikes to a certain number throughout the night, that I would be going in for brain surgery. And so he watched that monitor for 7 hours throughout the night until they took me down for a repeat MRI. And they found out that my brain bleed, it wasn't stopped, it wasn't progressing, so I wouldn't need brain surgery.
Wow.
Sometime in there.
Go back to your,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
No, I just wanted to go back to your mom for a second, because the psychology with that is confusing. I'm sure, like, to you, it's confusing too, right? Like, your mom said she didn't feel welcome. Meanwhile, you are the one in the hospital going through all of this. What has happened, if you don't mind me asking, to the relationship with your mom at this point with you and her?
Sure. So at this point, I have removed all of the anger at this time. It's been a number of years. She has decided to walk away from our family, and it's almost sad because it seems like she has ruined every relationship within our extended family as well. I was told by my grandfather that I believe she has now moved to another state. So
you don't talk to your mother anymore?
I don't. She will reach out every once in a while. I've given many attempts of having a conversation just to come to an understanding of, actions have consequences. And every time I try that, I met with hostility and anger. And so I'm not sure if there's, if she is battling a mental illness. I don't know if, or something just made her decide that she didn't want to be a mother and a wife anymore. And again, I was 32 when this happened. It's not like I was, a 12-year-old.
You don't usually hear about that, right? Like, if someone walks away, it's usually, my mother or my father walked away when I was 3.
Right.
You don't hear about someone deciding when their children are in their 30s. It's I mean, you're confused. I'm confused, but you're the most confused.
It was it was very hard. There's still days that I went through purchasing my first house. I went through becoming a parent. I've gone through all of these milestones in life without her. And we were very, very close my entire life up until this time. So it was a very hard adjustment for a long time, and a lot of therapy, I won't lie. Because I needed to just be okay with this is who she is, and that's all right. I also needed to make sure that I put up boundaries so that I didn't let myself go into that negative space. Because at the end of the day, I felt like a young child feeling unloved, and I didn't know why I wasn't good enough for my mom.
Mm-hmm. So the doctors told you that you would never walk again.
Yes. Some point during my ICU stay, which I was there for about 6 days, I had a stroke. They're not exactly sure when. All of a sudden, though, from my belly button down, just completely stopped working.
So you didn't even know that you had a stroke?
No. All of a sudden, it just kind of stopped.
So they told you you'd never walk again. And of course, you weren't accepting that answer or that response.
So at first, there was kind of a ripple effect. My legs stopped working. They did more testing. I had 2 surgeries. They took part of my quadricep and part of my steral nerve, which is behind your ankle bone, to biopsy them to see if there was anything going on. So if you remember, I was taken by ambulance from my doctor's office. So my car was still there. Well, my birthday is February 15th. I was taken by ambulance February 22nd in the state of Michigan. Our registrations for our vehicles are based on our birthday.
Yeah.
At one point, my dad had gotten a ride to take my vehicle out of my doctor's parking lot, which my doctor, he was great. He's a small family physician. He was great with it. My dad said, we'll get it. So he made arrangements, and it was March. I was a procrastinator and I had not gotten my new tabs yet. And my dad calls me and he says, "Hey kid, I'm getting pulled over. Where's your license, or where's your registration on your car?" And I said, "Oh, it's in the glove compartment. No big deal." Unfortunately, January, prior to me getting sick, my dad was in an accident during a snowy night. And apparently they had issued an arrest warrant for him for that we did not know about.
Oh my gosh.
So I'm in the hospital bed, no movement of my legs, and I'm hearing my father being arrested because he drove my car because I didn't take the time to get my registration updated.
Oh, wow.
So I have my dad, who is now my main support. He's been there every other day. He is now gone. Linda, my biological mother, is nowhere to be found. I'm calling, crying, asking her to help. Nothing. And then they tell me that we are so sorry. We know that you are athletic and you're healthy. However, you will never walk again. We're going to teach you how to go home and live life in a wheelchair. So it was literally the trifecta of crap all at once. So I did. I completely shut down. They had put me on a suicide watch, which I had never said anything. I was as positive and uplifted as I could be for the situation I was in at the time. And then it was literally just a complete fold. So there was 3 days where I didn't let anybody in my room, my staff, nothing. I didn't eat. I didn't know how to talk to anybody. And I had a really, really hard few conversations with the man upstairs. I was angry. I said some few choice words that I have apologized profusely for since. But it was, I didn't understand, and it was selfish. I was 100% selfish of, how could you do this to me? What did I do to deserve it? And so I finally let a psychiatrist had come in to talk to me a little bit. We had figured out how to, my dad could communicate to me because he was kept in jail until his hearing and all of that stuff. So he was not out. So I was able to talk to him. He could call. And there was a PT and OT. There were two of them that they're like, you know what, let's go into the gym. We have to teach you, how to do laundry in a wheelchair, move from the bed to the chair. We got to get you going at least something. So reluctantly, I said, okay. And it was awful. The first day was terrible. I wanted no part of it. I didn't want to learn it. I didn't want to figure out how to maneuver in this wheelchair. I didn't want to be in it. I went back to my room, I cried. And then that night I had another conversation and I said, if you can give me the life that I'm accustomed to and the life that I want, I promise I will give back in any way and shape form that I can. 2 days later, I was in the gym, the rehab gym again. This was day about 48 of my 60 days. And they had, age myself a little bit. So you remember the Johnny jumpers that you put in the doorway and you let the kids bounce, the babies?
Yep.
Yeah, of course.
So they have an adult version of that in this rehab
that sounds
gym.
like fun.
Yeah. So I'm dangling from the ceiling and they had put a full length mirror in front of me. And they said, just look at your legs, kind of a mind over matter thing. So for about 15 minutes, I stood there. They had brought me down enough to where my feet were on the floor. Again, I couldn't feel anything. And after about 15 minutes, all of a sudden my left foot just kind of dragged itself a little bit. And we have videotape of it actually. And I took about 7 steps in the Johnny jumper. But I was able to, even though I couldn't feel my legs moving, I was watching it in the mirror and somehow the brain made the legs move. And that was when I took my first steps. And that was
That's
beginning
awesome.
of April. Mm-hmm.
If you watch Randy's social media, I mean, you work out every day, you put that on Facebook. And when I was talking to you a couple weeks ago about it, you said you put your workouts on Facebook because you want to inspire other people who may be maybe have gone through what you went through, or maybe they're just feeling, in the dumps and, you can give them some inspiration. So, for someone who was told they were never going to walk again, you're doing the complete opposite of that at this point,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So
it wasn't easy. It took a long time. So I did on April 22nd, which was 60 days. I got my release. I walked out of the hospital, we'll say. And when I say that, and you'll see the video on my social media, every year I repost it. I look at it quite a bit, especially when I have down days. I looked like a mix between a young Forrest Gump and Elvis when he did his hip thrusts. I was all over the place. I was in a walker and that was a Sunday. I was released from the hospital. I had no license. Secretary of State took my license. Didn't know that could happen. It did. Mm-hmm. And that Monday morning, my team lead picked me up from my apartment and I was in the office at 8:30 that next morning.
Randy, what kind of from a mental standpoint, right? And I'm listening to this and I've not been through anything like that in my life. And I know, but I do know what it feels like to kind of get beat down and ask yourself, what did I do to deserve this through some things in my own life? So what got you from, hey, I'm not going to walk, that day before you took that first step? It's I'm probably not going to walk. And then you had this conversation of, if you do this for me, I will give back. And what is the mental gymnastics that you have to play? How does that take a toll on the rest of your mindset and your physical self to get to a point of hey, if I can just do this, great. And then it happens for you.
Well, so, for anybody who started in the real estate industry, it's a struggle. It's amazing. We have an amazing life we create. The first 2 years or so, you're busting your butt and it's sink or swim. you know, as leaders, you can pretty much tell within the first 2 months if somebody's going to make it or not. They're putting the effort in, they're making it happen. Now, again, I was in the hospital for 60 days, 60. My clients only found out I was in the hospital when I was in the ICU. And one of my biggest clients, who was an investor, or is an investor, he actually flew from Argentina to come see me.
Wow.
I continued my business and I ended up closing 40 units that year. While
40
having
units.
Yeah. Now, again, you have to remember, I started my business in the city of Detroit selling, $30,000 flip single family homes. I loved it. I'm very grateful for it. So yes, I did 40 units. The volume was not quite there yet.
Right, but the
and
fact
it was,
that you were able to do that many units when you were going through this like debilitating situation.
You have two options. You can push through, make it happen, and show everybody or yourself that you can, or you can lie down, say, well, I failed, move on to the next. And you have to remember, like, I live in an apartment at this point. I'm single. Nobody's going to pay my bills except me. My dad is now incarcerated, and my biological mom had left. She packed up her stuff and left. So now I have my family home that I grew up in, my dad built for us when I was a kid, that's not getting the bills paid. I have the ability to make money. Yes, it's hard. I had no license as a realtor. So I was a Uber fantastic 5-star Uber passenger. So it was this, okay, what am I going to do? Am I going to sit down, let myself fail and go back to, serving tables, bartending, which I can make money at and I absolutely hate at the end of the day, or put in a little more effort, figure out how I can make this work, save my family house, save enough money to buy my own house, help my dad out when he gets out, and because he's, his world is now upside down, or show everybody that yes, I failed. So it really wasn't an option for me of am I going to or am I not? It was, this is what I have to do. How am I going to make it happen?
And it's what I love is that you said there's two options. Like let's break it down. You push through or you give up. That's it. There's no in the middle here. So what are you going to do? And it's like, for someone who's obviously a high achiever, give up really isn't even on the table.
Not when you're as competitive as I am. That is not an option.
Yeah, I love it.
So how has your health been since then?
So I was actually on a heart medication for about 6 months, because when one organ fails, the others struggle.
Yeah.
And I did get my license back after about 4 months being out of the hospital. I started walking with a cane, and then at just around the 6-month mark after being discharged, I threw my cane aside one day and I said, here we go. I was taken off my heart meds. So by the end of 2018, I was free and clear. I do get, I get a little more extensive checks. I do need to be careful with protein powders. I'm not able to have whey protein because it does do a number on your kidneys. And I have to be very cognizant of my hydration levels. Aside from that, the only residual I have is that I don't actually feel my left foot at all.
Oh, interesting.
Wow. So it's totally numb.
Completely numb. Yep.
And how is that? How have you learned to walk normally without feeling your foot on the ground?
Same way I learned how to walk again. I watched it for many, many months. Now it's, I wear heels every day, and that's part of my brand. It's also, there's a reason. It's because I was told I would never be able to again. And, at the end of the day, I'm blonde and in many heels. So if I trip, no big deal. It's fine. Just chalk it up to that.
Hey, listen, nobody can fault you for that, right?
Absolutely. So.
I mean, wow, it's an incredible, inspiring story, and you definitely got through it as a real estate agent would get through it, like doing your deals in the hospital bed, you know what I mean? Like asking for your laptop, just did you do anything to keep some positivity? Like you said you went into a depression at some point. But how were you able to stay positive and just kind of see this through?
So that was kind of the beginning of my social media journey, in that it was actually meaningful. I kept updates on social media, and the reason I did that is it wasn't for, the compassion or people feeling bad for me. It was because what I noticed is that, I went to Pinckney High School. I started there as a freshman, so I was a new transplant. I graduated from there. I had good friends. They were not my lifelong friends. And what I noticed was that when some players that I had played volleyball and basketball with in high school, these girls who I hadn't really kept in contact with for 15 years, they showed up in my hospital room. They did my hair, they did my makeup just to make me feel a little bit better. And so I really did hold on to the people that I had that I didn't even know I had. So that was a big one. The other one was that my office did have a capability of doing like a Zoom, because we had multiple offices. And so they let me actually come into the team meeting. So I was still part of the team, even though I was hanging out at the hospital.
Well, for those listening, we lost Rob because the power went off at his office. So the weather is pretty bad outside. So that's probably what happened. So we lost Rob, but that's okay because we're coming to the end. And it's been a pleasure having you. The story is incredible. I hope everyone listening to this gets some inspiration. There's a lot of, in real estate, there's a lot of limiting beliefs. There's a lot of victimhood. There's a lot of that in, I think, entrepreneurship. But speaking in terms of real estate, there is a ton of that, right? There's excuses after excuse after excuse. And you busted through so many barriers and kept going. And so I hope when people are listening to this, they are taking away something valuable, and realizing that we just have to keep our head up. We just have to keep our head up.
It can always be worse. Life can always be worse. Like I went through something that was awful. I don't really see it that way until I talk to other people and they tell me what an impact it is. It's just a chapter in my book. It doesn't define me. It helped build me to who I am. And I have held up to the best of my abilities, my bargain with God. Once I had kind of had things going a little bit more stable, my business was back on track. In 2019, I became a licensed foster parent. And so I have had three kiddos through my house in the last 2.5 years. And so
that's so awesome.
That was my way when I looked into okay, he held up his end. It's time for me to pay up. That was what I really felt like I wanted to do. So I like I said, I became a parent in a way without my mom. My dad has been a huge support. And now it's, it can always be worse. So
are you still fostering kids?
I am. My house is open right now. I usually give myself between 3 and 6 months of a healing time after a child or children leave.
Okay.
Because there is hard, it's hard. You do get connected.
Yeah.
So I
how long do you have these kids?
So my first grew, I had a sibling pair were my first placement. They were 2 and 4, and I had them for almost a year. And
2 years old and 4 years old for your first time.
Yeah. And that was literally 3 days after the state of Michigan shut down for COVID. I ended up with 2 kids in my house.
Oh my gosh.
While running a business.
How was that?
Amazing. It was, you realized how much more structured you can be and how successful you can be. That year, again, I had 2 kids. The state was shut down. I still, prior to, the year prior, I beat my volume and my units sales in 2020 with 2 kids. They were in sports because I wanted them to have everything that I had as a little one, no matter what their situation was. We went through the court process. It was in the best interest of them. Their parental rights were revoked, and they are now happy in a adopted home.
That's so cool.
Yeah,
I love it. It's got to be rewarding, right? I mean, that my wife and I have talked about it too. Like, we have 2 children of our own, and we've talked about doing the foster thing. How does that make you feel? Like, is it a rewarding feeling?
it is. It's a struggle in itself because you don't know what they've really gone through, what they're handling.
Right.
There's a lot of emotions. There's a lot of things that sometimes they don't even understand. Like the little ones, they didn't know and how to process their emotions. So we had to figure it out. At the end of the day, though, as hard as it is some days, it is extremely rewarding when you see that they're thriving. I had a 12-year-old in my home. I only had her for about 4.5 months. And, her parents had some struggles. They worked through it, and they're back together as a family and doing amazing. They're doing fantastic together. So it really is well worth any hardship that you might have in the moment.
Wow. Well, I mean, we could go on for hours talking about all of the things that you've been through and that you're doing. But we do have to come to an end at some point.
Yes.
So let's do it now. It's been a pleasure having you. For anyone listening, if you enjoyed this podcast, you know what to do. Hit subscribe, follow, download, share, leave us a review. Do all of the things if you really want to go above and beyond. And Brandy, why do I keep saying Brandy? I know your name is Randy, but it's funny. Like,
it's so easy, and everybody does it. You're not the only one. Literally, all of my schooling, I just went by Brandy because it's like a tongue twister. It's all good.
Randy, but I know that it's not Brandy. That's the thing. I'm saying your last name and your first name at the same time. That's what's happening. Yeah, so thank you for being on the show. I appreciate that. You're a busy realtor, so I know you're probably itching to go take a listing right now, but thank you for being here. And like I said, if you enjoyed what you heard, show us some love, subscribe, and we'll see you on the next episode of Command Your Business.